Hi, and welcome to Screens in Focus, the podcast where we talk about TV and movies. I'm Diana, and today we are talking about Daryl Dixon, Season 2, Episode 5. Renee is back. I'm so excited. Hi, Renee. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. I can't wait to talk about this episode. Almost finished with this season. I can't believe it.
I know. Wow. This penultimate episode, so much happened. And I know I say that a lot, but I really think that a lot happened. All right. We are into November, which is kind of crazy, and everything's going to come right at us. But anyway, with that is this finale that we're looking forward to. So one of the big things that happened in this episode was Carol's lie comes to light, and we see Ash's reaction to that. So the question of the day is going to be, if you were Ash, would you forgive Carol? Okay, so think about that. Renee, think about that. We're going to answer it in a little bit. We're going to talk about it. Might change our mind, might not, might reaffirm what our thoughts are. So anyway, in this episode, Carol's lie comes to light. We see Ash's intense reaction to that. We see Daryl and Cadron team up to fight against Lasang and his people. And it also, with what happens there, it makes you wonder what's going to happen next and who the next threat might be. And then, of course, we see Daryl and Carol navigate their way, trying to protect Laurent and get themselves home. So with all of that and everything that happened, what stood out to you?
Well, a lot of things did, because there were, like you said, there was a lot in this episode. But one thing I really, really liked was Daryl and Carol fighting together again. You know, that's just always so fun. And I just liked when they were trying to get to Ash, and they were like, oh, there's something alive in that car. They're pretty sure it's Ash. And I just really loved that, because it was just fun to see that fight sequence and just the two of them together again, doing how well they work together. And I liked the feeling of the Walking Dead series, especially when they did that overview of the car, and it looked like the tank that Rick was in season 1.
Yes.
And that was a thing that we had seen way early in one of the first teasers, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, that's that scene, you know? So it was cool to see it finally in the series. So that was definitely a very big standout moment for me. But I just think overall there was a lot of this stuff is in our themes section. We'll talk about it there in just a little bit here. But it was just a lot of things going on for different people. And it kind of felt like it was kind of all over the place, because you've got, a lot of different emotions, a lot of different situations going on. But that fight scene was really a big standout to me, just because I think it kind of pulled at those nostalgic heartstrings and things.
Oh, man. So right now I have major chills, because I felt exactly the same way. I loved that scene. It was awesome watching them together. Oh my gosh, I still have them, because it just means so much. And, this morning I was thinking about how much we know these characters, how much we know any of the Walking Dead characters. We talk about them so much. I've never talked about characters as much as I have the Walking Dead characters, and just how connected we feel to them. So I think in watching this, it's like we've seen two buddies just know how to react, and that together they feel invincible. That doesn't mean that they are, but it feels like that. And so we are in it with them. And man, that scene, like you said, and I said the same thing to my husband as we were watching it again. And I said, oh, that's like that iconic scene with Rick in the tank. And so I just thought it was so cool. And we'll talk a little bit more about it, but I would say that's the standout moment. So in talking about Carol and Daryl and seeing them together, let's talk about them as in their relationship as characters. So what else struck you about them?
Well, I think it's really fun to see them just to fall back into kind of how they always have been, where they, just in their conversations and their fighting and their, just all these things that they're, kind of picking on each other and things, and just kind of getting back into the swing of things. Like when you have that one friend or, more than one friend that you don't see for months and months, and you just pick right back up where you left off, like no time had passed. And that's kind of how it feels. So that's been a lot of, it's been very interesting to see Carol and this grief she's 13 years later going through. And, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the main series it wasn't able to deal with everyone's grief every time somebody died. It was just, there were so many characters going on. And I've read a couple articles to that effect where, the showrunner and, even Greg Nicotero and Melissa McBride have all weighed in on that, saying that this was the time to have her go through that grief and things. So that's just been interesting because we don't always see that from Carol. So it's been, like she seems a little off because this isn't generally how she is. And so she's always in control of her emotions, control of her thoughts and what she's doing. And this kind of seems to she's not doing that right now. I mean, she's still doing well, but you can tell there's definitely some baggage there she's trying to deal with, which leads to Daryl and his grief too, which has been very difficult to watch because we know he's grieving. We know all these things and he just doesn't have time to stop and think about it. And he's doing very well at it because if the subject of Isabel comes up, he will completely turn another direction and just not even respond. So I just hope that, we have one episode left. I hope he doesn't have a complete breakdown and then something happens because of it. They will leave us with a cliffhanger for the season finale.
Wow. I already said it. I got chills, but why do I have chills so much? I think because you're saying so many things that I'm feeling too. And then as you say them, they're just exactly how I feel. One, yes, I love their relationship. Their relationship makes me smile. There was a point in there, and I can't remember now when it is, that made me chuckle. And I love when she's talking about Ash and he says, "What do you have the hots for him?" I thought that was so funny. It was so good. It felt real. It felt so real. And she says, "No, there just really isn't any, other good guys around." And so, she's having to contemplate, because as they're walking up, she keeps trying to really not divulge to Daryl, like what she's done. So she kind of tiptoes around it and he kind of like pushes her. He's all, "Nah, I'm going inside." And she's all, "Wait, to this and this." And he's all, "Nah, I'm going with you." And then she's all, "Let me get in front." That's what made me laugh. She's all, "Let me get in front at least." It was hilarious to me. It was just their relationship is just so comfortable. It's so these good friends. And so I think it's just amazing to watch them. Yes, with Carol, we see her really dealing with the grief that she's going through. And it contributes and fuels these choices that she's making that are not the best choices. It always gets her in these predicaments. She always finds herself, and it makes us always wonder, "Oh God, Carol, why are you doing this? This is not the right way to approach us." But that's what makes her so compelling to watch, because she doesn't make the choices that maybe we would make. And so we're like, okay, what's going to happen? How is this going to work out for her? Isn't? So, she's just this deeply flawed character that we continue to root for, even though she may not make the right decisions or things that we think that she will make. But yeah, just her coming to terms with this and trying to find some peace is hard. And then with Daryl, like you said, hit the grief that he's going through. And I feel like we saw it kind of burst out when he had that fight with Lasang, because he was like, "Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for you." And then the way that portion ended, it was like kind of crazy. It was like, oh my God,
wow.
He's really, but I mean, Lasang deserved it. He did that to Isabel. But yeah, that fight scene was actually a pretty good one to watch too.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice that we got some really good fight scenes in this with different people. I think that kind of elevated the whole episode for me, watching all of that. So did you see any themes in this, or are there any other characters that you want to dig into?
Well, Cadron. I'm always going back to him for some reason because I've just been intrigued by him the whole time.
Yeah.
When we first met him and just what makes him tick and what makes him be the way he is, and we find all this out, like he's, so I feel like with him, it's like he's going through some grief and then also kind of a change of faith, I guess, or something, where he's realizing that his fear and his anger is what made him do the things he's done. He was trying to protect these people. They're all dead now. And so then he's got this grief too. And then you got Laurent coming to him and I forgive you, and he goes, but I hope one day you can forgive yourself. And I was like,
yes,
what? Because that's something most people forget, and when you're forgiving and things like that, you have to forgive yourself. And it's difficult to do because we're our harshest critics, and so I've just been really intrigued by him. And I just really liked, I have a feeling, he'll probably end up sacrificing himself in the final season.
Right.
Just because, I don't know, it's just a thought I have, we'll see. But I wish not. But, I don't see him going to Spain with them either. So I suppose this is the end of him. But if he does, I'm sure it'll be a glorious ending. But yeah, so I really with him, like I said, like kind of like the faith and then his grief that he is facing finally and things. Honesty too is another one. We finally see Carol come out, like you had said, she finally admits to what she, which, she had to admit it to Daryl too. This was doubly hard for her because not only did she have to tell Ash, a guy she just met, but does like, and knows he's a good guy. And then she also, other person that's very important to her, she had to admit that to him too. And he even, kind of throws it back to her at one point. And he's like, well, why don't you just tell another lie? So it was pretty brutal, and Carol does that. Carol's honest. Carol will fess up to things.
Yes,
she's made.
She will.
She's never had a problem with that. Like, oh yeah, that one might not have been a good idea. Or, hey, that was a great idea. Maybe not the way I went about it, but she's always that way. That honesty was good to see. And then I feel like grief, that's a huge theme in this one because everyone's grieving somebody. And, we saw, Laurent after Isabel, that was when he was like, I got to talk to you. I'm like, no, just don't talk to him. Just tell him she'll be around.
I know, right?
And he, being Laurent, she's with now, that was, and just how he's trying to process, So, you got Daryl grieving, Carol grieving, Laurent's grieving, Cadron's grieving. I mean, that's, to me, it was a huge theme in this episode.
Yes, all of those. So I do want to bring up Laurent. I was so happy. Of course, we knew we would probably see him in this episode, but I was so glad that we finally got to see him. It actually made me happy. So I'm like, I really like this character because there's something about him. There is a light about him. I think that they cast this role so well with him. He just really works. Even when he's not saying anything, when Cadron and him were at Vouloir's place there and they were hiding, he doesn't even need to say anything. And just the look on his face, his eyes, he's so good. He's such a great actor. But I love the scene, how you were saying between them, and we got to learn more about Cadron. And I don't know, he was talking to him, to Laurent, like he was another person, not a child. Like he was saying, they were talking about anger. He was saying anger really can get the best of you and make you do the worst things. And he didn't shy away from when Laurent asked him, why did you want to kill Daryl? What was it? And he says, oh, because my brother and this and that. And Laurent also says, well, fear makes you do, things too that maybe you don't want to. So I really love the dynamic between them two. And I really love that Cadron has had this arc because he was such a villain. He didn't want him, wanted him out. And now we get to see more of him and his character, which I really appreciated. And also with Ash, we finally get to see him. And he is like pissed at Carol for what she did for using her child as a lie. It's like, how could you do this? How could you say this? And I'm sure he's wondering, were you just being kind to me just to get my airplane? Carol does try to explain to him, why she did. And she says, I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain what I did. But he's not having it right now because he's going through his grief of leaving, of everything that he had to give up to come with her. And also maybe grief from the relationship he thought he had with her.
Yeah.
Because it's not what he thinks it is. So there was a lot of grief in this episode and forgiveness. And of course, faith and hope. And I do want to mention with Lesang, I liked how Falou said to him, if you need Laurent for hope, then you've already lost it.
If you need proof, he says, yes. He says, if you need proof of your faith, you've already lost it. And that I had that on another spot to bring up too. So because that was, I clapped my hands when he said that because I just loved that. So.
Yes, I thought that was really cool. I do want to mention Ash, his performance in this. He's played by Manish Dayal, I think, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. He was so good in this. So good. And I'm worried about him. I'm really worried about him, which we'll talk about in our what we think is going to happen in the next episode. But anyway, are there any other happenings that you want to talk about?
The Demimonde, that was fun going back there to see what is it Anna, right? Anna.
Yes, I think it was Anna.
Yeah,
yes.
She was, I felt like she was in her element. She'd always had Quinn kind of pushing her down and, not letting her do anything and that kind of stuff. And now she's in charge and she's just telling everybody what's what and doing everything. And so I thought that was kind of fun to, go back there and see that. And then go through the catacombs again where all the fights were and things. So that was interesting to see that again too, because it was such a cool thing to be featured in this. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. Just seeing her, because we assumed she was still alive last we knew, but you never know. So that was interesting to just see how that side of that of Quinn's story had panned out after his death.
Yes. I loved seeing that too. See, I think that was exciting to see her. And you're right. She was in her element. It worked. I liked her responses, the way she was so different. She was different than how it just gave a different flair. It wasn't the American way. It was a different, the French way. And so I really liked seeing that. I loved this music, of course. I love watching the dancers. It was just so good. It added so much. And you're right, the catacombs where the fight happened. I already mentioned how I loved seeing Daryl and Lesang fight, but it was just very cool having them face off with each other. And Daryl does really get hurt, which I appreciated because that could happen, right? He can't always be invincible. And when he told Laurent, or Laurent says, well, what if you're not back? And he says, I'll be back. I'm like, oh, I hate when adults tell kids that. And then it's like they don't come back or something else happens. I'm like, oh my gosh. Although I was expecting Daryl to come back, but it just was so typical.
Yeah.
So typical. One other thing I wanted to mention about Laurent was his hesitation that was another thing that we saw, his hesitation of loss, because he has that weight of him that people keep protecting him and he keeps losing them. So he lost the nuns, he lost Sylvie, he lost his mom, he lost Isabel. And so he's all, I don't want to lose you, Daryl. I don't want to lose you. So he keeps telling Daryl, I don't want to go with you to America. And I love that Daryl says, look, Isabel wanted you to come. I wanted you to come, but it's your decision. And it reminded me how he was with Judith.
Yeah.
Like he's straightforward. Like he's not going to force anyone. He's going to ask you, like, it's your choice. What do you want to do? But I thought it was kind of nice to see Laurent go through something of his own that we were able to see as his character. Yeah, I don't know. Do we miss anything? Do we cover everything? There's so much that happened.
I did want to just add on to what you said about Laurent and Daryl and that interaction. When Daryl said something to him about not letting his fear controlling, or something like that, I feel like that was Daryl thinking back to himself as a child of that, that age and the decision he made, and that he was always scared of Merle and he was always scared of all these things. And I felt like that kind of was him speaking from experience kind of thing and sharing it with this kid because, this kid's just learning how life and things. So I really liked that because I do feel like it was kind of him remembering back to his childhood.
Yeah. So I was surprised that Lasang died during this episode. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I thought it was an amazing fight, and I've been waiting for this. I'm like, the two of them are going to have it out at some point because they showed him training, Daryl watching. I just thought they're leading up to something, but I honestly didn't expect it in this episode. I thought they'd wait, and this would happen in the finale of the season. So it was a kind of a shock to see that. Yeah, and when he took that skull and beat him, I was like, oh my gosh, Daryl. It was brutal.
I know.
But it was, yeah.
You got to use what you got.
That's
right.
Whatever it can be, right? Yeah. It's complete survival mode. And so, yeah, it was really, really cool to see these two characters come against each other like that. And I thought it was awesome. But I definitely was surprised that it happened in this episode.
Yeah. And I like that we got to see them. And then we saw Cadron fight that. I don't remember her name. What's her name?
I think it's Jacinta.
Jacinta. Yeah. Okay. So, but I'm like, why did you only throw her up against the wall? She stabbed you, buddy. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's because of his grief. He's like, okay, I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to do it. Or maybe he thought she was dead by throwing her up against the wall.
I don't know. She's a thin little thing. Maybe he thought it was enough.
Damn. We saw those fingers move. I knew it. I'm like, no. And he didn't stab her. Okay. Cadron has gone through a lot.
I know. I'm
like, how's that guy still standing? Right. I mean, they've cut off his fingers. They did something to his eye. He's been beaten up, not eating, dehydrated, all kinds of things. Now he's stabbed, up here. Yeah. I'm like, oh man,
rough shape.
Rough shape for sure. So, okay. Well, so much happened in this episode. I don't even know if we covered a lot of it, but I'm sure we'll cover a little bit more as we get into our favorite moments and what we're expecting. But I want to revisit our question of the day, which is, if you were Ash, would you forgive Carol? Renee, what do you think?
So in my mind, forgiving and forgetting are two separate things. And while I likely would eventually forgive her because, as another parent, you would kind of understand, whatever, but that as a friend too, you understand that, her friend was very important to her. So I think I would weigh those things and eventually forgive her, but it would drastically change the dynamic of our friendship.
I know, it's so hard, right? Because we have seen Carol's history and such, but I can understand how Ash felt so betrayed. And I think his reaction was exactly what you would expect. He's hurt. He's so hurt. But backing up a little bit, I do love that he thanked her for this and getting him out and everything that he's learned. And of course, she tries to use it as to soften it. He's all, oh, no. That doesn't, the end doesn't just whatever. I don't know if that's the right. Is that is that what he says? I can't even remember if it's.
I don't know if he says, I just can't remember if he says it, but that's in essence what, he could have said. It would have fit perfectly.
Yes. So, and anything that he said would have been right, because when your friend or someone that you've trusted betrays you, you're going to let it out. But I also believe in the power of forgiveness, because if you don't forgive, it's killing you. It will fester in you and just not free you. And so I think that eventually he will forgive her. And I think actually more so quickly in an apocalypse, because you have to deal with, these walkers and survival and such. But I think it'll put something on him. But I truly think Carol really, really cares about him a lot.
Yeah.
And this is going to be something that is going to weigh on her still. It's not going to be easily gone, even with forgiveness and talking and everything else. I want to bring up something about Laurent. I'm sorry, I'm changing it. We'll get back to the question of the day. I just don't want to forget this. I loved how when Laurent and Carol met, that Laurent tells Carol, I prayed for you. I prayed for Ezekiel. I prayed for Judith and RJ. I thought that was the sweetest thing, and showed what type of person Laurent was. I absolutely loved it. Sorry, I had to mention that.
That was good because he knows how important they are. He's heard Daryl talk about them, and Daryl
Yes.
with him, and so yeah, it was this whole kind of and I love that when he said, "Oh, you're Carol from the Commonwealth." I love
yes, yes, and his accent, the way he says names and such, it's so even how he says Daryl. I just love. I really like Laurent a lot. So anyway, okay, back to the forgiveness and Ash. Sorry about that. But friends out there, we would love to know, what do you think? Carol really betrayed Ash, the trust and everything. So if you were Ash, would you forgive Carol? Tell us. You can comment here on YouTube. You can go on social media. You can even call us at 669-223 8542 because we would love to know, and we will be talking about it. If you call us, we'll talk about it in the next episode and break it down. So we would love to hear from you. All right. So now we are moving into, and the award goes to. So tell me, Renee, what was your favorite quote, character, or moment?
Well, there were several, but we've talked about a lot of them. So I tried to think of something different to finish this off. So I'm going to use the scene where they're inside the car and those super walkers are out there below. I don't know what's going on out there, but the look on Daryl's face, he didn't expect that to go down like that. He's looking around like, well, what is going on out there? And that blood, it was what a fun scene to make and to film and do all that. That's what I was thinking the whole time. I thought, oh my gosh, they had so much fun doing this, splattering the blood and everything. So yeah, and what a genius idea. He's seen that happen. So he knows what they were, that happened back when he was fighting Quinn, I believe, wasn't it? I think that they shot up one of the walkers and he tore up one of the regular walkers. Yeah. And so he remembered that, like, oh, I can use this to my advantage. And boy, did he. So yeah, I thought that was excellent.
That's mine. That is exactly mine. I'm like, that was the best scene. All of it, like them walking up, getting the guns, getting through to get into the car. I mean, you have to go through the walkers, right? And you're not like covered in blood trying to get through them. You're like shooting them up. I mean, there are a lot of them. And that's why we loved seeing Daryl and Carol fight together like that. So then they get in the car. And yes, to find that serum and to shoot. And I'm thinking, what is he doing?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's happening. This is scary, right? Because you don't really know what's going to happen to them. So I thought it was a very intense scene. We didn't know what to expect. And then all of a sudden, all this exploding something and blood is dripping all over. And I love the interior shot, how they went around the car. Oh, I thought that was so cool looking at that. And then the fact that he's so brave and he's, we need to crack the window, and he gets on top with all those hands coming at him. Those walkers were crazy. I swear the walkers in France are crazier than the ones in America.
It's because they've been experimenting.
I know. But then, shooting them. And at first I didn't recall that they did things to each other. I just didn't really recall that, but I just assumed, okay, that's what's happening. But then when they break in and Carol has the one round and then he, or they get the other one with the knife, I'm like, oh my God, but what if they didn't? What if they didn't? and then when they come out, they have to walk over all these pieces of these walkers. Again, Greg Nicotero was in heaven in the scene. You saw heads, you saw legs chopped off, of the walkers, but still it was so good. It was so good. And I kept thinking as they were walking over him, I was afraid Ash was going to get bit by a head or something. I'm like, no, don't get bit. But yes, I agree with you. That was like the best scene. I absolutely loved it. All right. So with all this that happened, and a lot happened, what do you think? Would you think of this whole episode, which I think I already know kind of what you thought, but and what do you think might happen in the finale? Like, how do you think things will wrap up or people will emerge?
Well, overall, yeah, I liked it because it did feel very reminiscent of Walking Dead, and I don't expect these spinoffs. I don't want these spinoffs to just repeat The Walking Dead, but I love when we hear the names of those familiar characters, when we see things like, because even I don't think I mentioned this. I mentioned how the tank, that reminded us of the tank, but I also was thinking with Carol and Daryl in the car, that reminded me when Jesus and Daryl were stuck in the car and Morgan saved them. And so that kind of reminded me of, like here Daryl's stuck in a car again with walkers all around.
Was it Jesus? Was it Jesus?
Oh, it's Aaron. It was Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron. I thought it was Aaron. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, that was right. Yeah, it was Aaron. And then Morgan comes in and rescues him. So, it reminded me of that. And, I think I liked watching, like Carol Daryl walking through the fields, that kind of puts you, just all those different little pieces that it's still a very different series, but we just had these little moments of familiarity, I guess, and I think I pointed that out in Dead City and the first season in Daryl Dixon too. It's just fun to see those little clips, whether they're doing it or not. It still gets that emotion in me of the original series. And so, overall, I did like the episode.
All I want to say, all I keep doing is I agree with you because it's so true. Because it is. It's exactly true. We want something new and exciting, which we get. We get that with the Demimonde. We get that with the catacombs. We get that with these super walkers. But then you're right. I love the familiarity. I love the names, like I mentioned about how Laurent mentions everybody back home. And so I love how they draw that all in. Like this is all still part of the Walking Dead original series, but it's new and it's fresh. And so, so I love all of that. So what do you think? Who do you think is going to emerge as this new foe? And what do you think is going to happen with the plane? Because I do want to mention this. They did say the very last words were, Ash comes in, meets Laurent, and then they say, oh, he's never been in a plane before. And they're like, oh, we're all four going back to America. And he's all, Paris, we have a problem. So
that was, we didn't mention that, but that changed. So did you watch the trailer for the next episode?
Yes, I just saw it.
So we got this new alliance coming. I mean, what they can do, I don't know in one episode. It's like weird to me.
Alliance as far as what? So maybe I didn't see everything. Okay, tell me what you saw.
Anna and Jacinta are because she wants the plane and she wants the boy. So they're like, okay, we'll help each other out. So they're okay. Not that either one of them on their own could do a whole lot, maybe. But they've got backing by these Janae's people. They're all there, and she's got all the Nest and those people kind of on. That what I'm saying. So it's like individually, no, they might not be able to do a whole lot of damage, but they've got people backing them that could do a lot of harm. And so, in one episode, though, what's going to happen? It's hard to imagine what will be happening. And then I read a very interesting thing. Showrunner David Zabel had said that, yes, they will be going from France to Spain. And this episode will kind of, I don't know how much information. So David Zabel said that there'll be an interesting stop in between. So they're going to go from France to somewhere to Spain. I think it's just going to be a quick, like the first episode that he said, and we're going to see something somewhere. So that'll be interesting to see where that stop is. And
you mean in season 3, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or this? Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I think this just sets it up. But he made it sound like we're going to find out where they're going or something. Because he said, he was in an interview and he said, just gave some little teasers and things. And so, but that's into season 3, but it's just going to be interesting if we get, I don't know how much we're going to get to learn about where that stop, that interesting stop is what he says. So that'll be interesting. And then Norman Reedus has stated that, I wrote it down so I get the right thing. He said, I will say the finale of season 2 is the best 1 hour Walking Dead anything ever. I've said it in press before. I stick to it. It's mind blowing. And, that's a very bold statement because there has been some amazing Walking Dead content over the past 14 years. Yesterday, October 31st was the 14th anniversary of the premiere of Walking Dead. So that's a bold statement.
Yes,
It's a
I
bold
love it.
statement to say that. And so I'm excited, very excited for this episode.
Oh my God. I've had so many chills during this episode. So many. Yes, I've heard that statement. He has said that's why I was so excited for this season. I am shocked by all the villains that we have come to know that have either changed, had their arcs, or died. So it's interesting how, how we go into this episode. And yes, we see how Anna has helped them out, but she is about her survival, self-survival. So she wants that plane now, even though she cares about Laurent. She's like, oh no, but just give me the plane. So, cause she even says people are willing to do a lot to get out of here. So I'm surprised she hasn't taken it over already. Although she's thinking, okay, Daryl's a force to reckon with.
She did say that she sent men to go, that those men that Ash had tied up.
And they didn't.
Those were her men. Yeah. So she already sent men to try it, but Ash wasn't having it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that Ash is so resourceful. I will say though, I am afraid for Ash because of that trailer. And I can't imagine anything else making Carol cry in that trailer.
Yeah.
And Daryl having to comfort her.
Don't like it.
I'm like, no. Oh man. And do you know, okay, so I'm going to say this. I said this about Isabel, so this better not be a thing. I'm a little worried about Carol. I really am. I'm going to freak out if something happens. I don't know. I hope that, because season 3 is not called the Book of Carol anymore. They removed that. And I realize it's because Carol came, but that better be the only reason that they would take that away.
I don't think they're getting rid of Carol. I really just don't. I
hope not. But I am thinking, if you want to shock the hell out of this world, this Walking Dead world.
One thought I did have was maybe somehow they get separated.
Well, she does say, if I have to get you home and I have to stay here.
Yeah. So that's what I kind of wonder if there's some kind of way, somehow they're separated. And that's what takes them to Spain or something, because I don't know that, so yeah. But I think Carol's pretty.
Then you have to tell 2 different stories, right? Then you have to tell.
Yeah, they kind of.
But sometimes. Yeah, but I was saying, they kind of do that, right? Yeah. Anyway, so
I guess we'll find out on Sunday. I can't believe it's already here.
I can't believe it either. Oh my gosh. So excited, but so sad, bittersweet. I hate that we're going to have to wait again. Whew, but man, oh man. Loving it. I love it. Daryl Dixon. Yes, it's great. All right. So that is our wrap up of episode 5, the penultimate episode of Daryl Dixon season 2. All right. Let's get into any recommendations we have. So Renee, have you watched anything?
I've watched a lot of things, but I didn't write them all down, so I can't remember. But I am currently watching Hysteria on Peacock. And have you heard of that one?
No, I haven't.
So it's set in the 1980s during the satanic panic era, when all the parents thought every kid was worshiping the devil and all this stuff. And then things were happening, but people were planting a lot of it and all this. But anyway, so it's set in that era. Basically, the synopsis is this: the popular football players comes up missing, and the whole town goes into, they just, they're panicking. What happened to this child? And, this and all that. Well, one of this little garage band decides they could capitalize on this by becoming a satanic metal band. And so they're just putting on, putting on an act kind of thing. But then some things happen and things start becoming a little dicey for them because of their actions and things. Bruce Campbell is in it. So that's, that was a fun, and I can't remember the rest of the actors. There's a lot of familiar faces that you'll remember, or that you'll be familiar with. Garrett Dillahunt is in. I haven't seen him yet. And then, he's
cool.
Like, I think he plays a priest or something. And so, I've only watched 2 or 3 episodes. And then Eric, I don't know if you say I think it's Teed. Eric Teed. He was in Tales of the Walking Dead. He was in Alphas, the episode D. And so he plays a cop in this too. So anyway, a couple Walking Dead, connections there, but it's fun so far. It's not like, earth shattering or anything, but it's a fun story and good. And like I said, good acting and things like that. So it makes it really fun. So yeah, it's on Peacock and you should check it out.
I don't get access to Peacock anymore. And so I used to watch things there, but I see that there's so many great things. So yeah.
I can't even remember what I'm always like, what was that on? I don't even know what streaming platform that was on. And then I think we both watched a good movie called Vouloir on Netflix, which is Anna Kendrick, and she directed it as well. And it's an interesting movie. What did you think of it?
I thought it was really good because it was so darn creepy. Anytime anything is real, it hits me so hard. Like I can watch anything that is made up. Like I can watch the worst things. It's crazy. But when you know something is true and really happened to people, women, it gets me. It like, oh man, I can't even imagine. And for anyone who doesn't know, it's set in is it 70s, I believe. And Anna Kendrick plays this actress who goes on the dating game show. And one of the bachelors is a serial killer. And her being on this dating show, it also interjects flashbacks of the serial killer killing women and just how he befriends them. And actually the scene and when he attacks them, it's crazy. The tension in this is so crazy because when she selects him as her date and it goes from there, oh my God.
I know it.
It was so creepy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Anytime it's real, it's so difficult to just, turn off your emotions and things. But I thought it was very well done.
Yeah. Very well done. I am so impressed. I'm so happy for her that she, one, is such a great actress, but two, that she directed this. It was really well done. I really liked it. And it's not a super long watch either.
No. I was surprised. I was like, oh, it's over. Yeah. It's a quick watch.
Yeah. And that guy who played the serial killer, man, he was creepy. And it just, I guess the most frustrating part, and this happens a lot, and this happens still currently, even though you wouldn't think so. But when people look the other way and don't investigate, they just kind of like let people know, because he was let go so many times just because. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. Really good movie. You guys should check that out. So for me, TV shows, I haven't watched too many, but I did forget to mention last time we met, I did watch American Horror Stories, season 3, episode 5, Backrooms. Because my son, I watched it with my son because he's all, let's watch this, Mom. It's Backrooms. So I learned so much about Backrooms. Sorry, I didn't realize Backrooms and what it actually meant, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And right now his name escapes me, but the guy in Sopranos was in it, and he was also in White Lotus. And oh my gosh, I was trying to find his name. Okay, so Michael Imperioli is the lead in this, and it's a great episode. And so now it made me kind of want to go back and watch them because they're anthology episodes. So you can just almost felt like the Twilight Zone or a Black Mirror. So where you just kind of go in and you see a standalone episode. So that was pretty good. Also, if you listen to us at all, I'm a huge Love is Blind person, and they've been dropping them in increments instead of the whole season. And this one came to a conclusion. It was a wild ride. I love it. I love love. And so Love is Blind, the current season, it was pretty good. I want them to have a reunion because there was some crazy stuff happening, and I want people to confront each other. So I want to see that. Another movie that I just watched on an airplane home was called Don't Move. And it's the #1 movie on Netflix right now. You know how it tells you what movie. So I'm like, okay. So I downloaded it so I could watch it on the airplane ride. I was happy I did. It felt predictable. Of course, it has like a, thriller trope happening. Like, man gets woman, drugs her. She can't move. How's she going to get out of this? People might come her way, and it just feels predictable. but at the same time, it was really well done.
Mhm.
So just know that it's predictable, but it was a good movie. I was glad I watched it. So that's it for me. Thank you, Renee, for your recommendations. Friends out there, if you have any recommendations for us, we would love to hear from you. You could give us a call at 669-223-8542. And as always, you can email us or comment on social media or in here on YouTube. All right, Renee, thank you for being with me. We are recording this Halloween day. So happy Halloween to you. And thank you for joining me today.
Yes. Happy Halloween. And thank you. I always enjoy it.
I know. I can't wait for our next one. Can't wait for it, Renee.
I know.
All right. Friends out there, thank you so much for joining us today. We are grateful you joined us, and we hope that we said something today that resonated with you, gave you a chuckle, gave you some inspiration. Remember to subscribe to Screens in Focus at screensinfocus.com because, of course, we would love more people in our community. Remember to keep watching, keep exploring, and keep those screens in focus, and we will see you next time. Bye.